Clevelander Rickie White says his father Roscoe was in the Marines with Lee Oswald, the believed lone assassin in the killing of President Kennedy. Researchers checked out his story and believe his father was involved. Big Two went on its own journey and found what could be the place the assassins would practice their mission. Tonight, we continue our series of exclusive reports, JFK, the West Texas Connection. Most notorious murder mystery, and 30 years later we're still not sure who killed President John F. Kennedy. So many unanswered questions has led many to believe a conspiracy exists, and that's the reason behind the JFK Assassination Information Center in Dallas, which opened its doors in 1989. It was here at the center in the late spring of 1990 that Rickie White of Midland walked in and told workers his father killed JFK.
Rickie came to the center in the spring of '90. We said, "Why do you think your father killed John Kennedy?" And he said, "Well, I found his diary, his journal, and it said he was one of the shooters behind the picket fence." And we said, "Well, let us see the diary." He said, "Well, I haven't got it. The FBI took it from me." And we thought, well, we had another coup kit, but we had him come in all the time.
Howard says even though Rickie couldn't come up with a diary, he didn't come to the JFK Center empty-handed.
And I just showed you the documents where Lee Oswald and Roscoe White left on the same ship together to Japan. He said, "My father joined the Dallas Police Department in October 7th, 1963. And he was in the police academy in approximately January of 1964. So he was with the Dallas Police Department during the assassination. On the police academy photograph, when he graduated from the police department, he was number one in his class. That's why he's sitting in the middle of the class.
But what really caught their attention, Howard says, was that Rickie mentioned his mother, Geneva, had worked for Jack Ruby and showed a photograph of the two together.
This photograph surfaced in 1988 in Time magazine. Just happened to pick one at random from a group of photographs no one ever seen.
Rickie told how his mother and father had met in Paris, Texas, and that when his father got out of the military, they ended up in Dallas. He said his father went to work for the Dallas Police Department, and his mother was hired by Jack Ruby to work as a rail girl at the Carousel Club. Researcher and former co-director of the JFK Center, Gary Shaw, says all of this adds up to more than a coincidence.
But it's significant that Roscoe White was an ex-Marine who served duty with Lee Oswald, was an expert marksman, came to Dallas shortly before the assassination and acquired a job with the Dallas Police Department, actually 7 weeks before the assassination, while his wife went to work for Jack Ruby. And you don't find a much better connection than that.
While some researchers look to the events right before the president's assassination, others believe the plot to kill Kennedy started much earlier, when he was first elected president. Kennedy entered Washington in 1961, immediately surrounded by a den of enemies. Many CIA agents were upset over the Bay of Pigs fiasco. Kennedy's brother Robert inflamed the mafia over his crime busting as Attorney General. And the president's threat to pull out of Vietnam, many say, would have cost the country billions of dollars. While the conspiracy theories point in different directions, some say the gunman involved with the secret mission trained here, near Van Horn, where we sent Big Two's Mike Gibson in search of clues.
3 hours on the road so far, and we're just now pulling into Van Horn. It's near this small town where we hope to find evidence that assassins trained for one of the biggest assignments ever, the killing of John F. Kennedy. Rickie White of Midland says his father Roscoe took the family on several supposed hunting trips to Van Horn back in 1963. White produced this copy of a family postcard from March of that year to at least prove he and his dad were in Van Horn at this time. White believes these trips were really an opportunity for his dad and other sharpshooters to practice for the Dealey Plaza murder. We've arrived on the ranch where we now are searching for a cabin, some sophisticated radio equipment, and a canyon. The ranch owner tells us there is a cabin down this road, but there is no radio equipment there. We find the cabin camouflaged by trees, so secluded that if you didn't know where to look, you probably couldn't find it. I have along with me Eddie Owen. He served in the National Guard during the 1960s as a radio technician. Both of us are wondering why powerful radio equipment would be out here to start with. We hope that if we find it, it will help prove covert operations may have at one time gone on here. A quick search of this shack in back of the house, and look what we find.
Transmitter. An old transmitter.
In the early 1960s, G.B. Brock of Odessa served as the chief of communications for the National Security Agency. Brock was in charge of 400 people whose job it was to intercept radio messages from around the world. Brock identified the radio equipment as being made by a Kansas City company. It was built before World War II, primarily for export to South American countries.
When I first saw it, I thought, well, this is an illegal operation, I'm sure, out there in Van Horn. What else was brought? And there's nothing legal out there going on that you would need that type of communication.
And I don't know what the purpose of that would be if it wasn't an antenna.
Now, that antenna is headed towards Mexico City. I mean, it's a directional type of antenna. And I have books that's got that same type of antenna.
Time now to take a look at the canyon where we've been told assassins trained. Rickie White says he went back to this ranch several years ago, and when he looked out over this area,
was too scary because I arrived, and have you ever been in a place that you know you've been there?
much of what you've seen and heard in our story could at one time been found on the big screen. These are scenes from the movie Executive Action.
The only possible scenario is 3 rifles with triangulated fire.
This early 1970s production had a short-lived run. It was yanked after showing for 2 weeks at theaters. Maybe this movie got too close to the truth. Rickie says this scene is how he remembered seeing his father on a hunting trip.
7 seconds and 2 misses. There's probably a kill over 2 seconds overtime.
So who shot JFK? Well, if you believe what you've seen and heard tonight, the answer may lie within this canyon. In Van Horn, Mike Gibson, Big 2 News.
At this point, researchers continue to look into this as a possible West Texas connection in the plot to kill Kennedy. And think about this. How can you accuse someone of murder before the crime's committed? Experts say that's what happened to Lee Harvey Oswald. Be sure to